All right, so this is basically our order of initiative. The mage will go first, followed by the companion, Eldith, and then the rabble. So another great thing about 4th edition and its design was the stat blocks contained what you needed. There weren't a bunch of spells listed that you needed to go and flip through a bunch of other books to find out what they did. All the information you need is right here. So we're going to start with an encounter power from this mage. That means he's going to not be able to use this except just once. An area burst one within 10 spaces. And we're going to say that this thunder burst is like a mighty dragon's roar. And it's going to be +7 versus fortitude. So characters in 4th edition didn't make saving throws in the same manner that they do in other editions. You had a defense, like a fortitude defense, and that was basically your target number that the enemy had to overcome with their attack. So I think he was attacking with a +7 versus fortitude. The dwarf, our companion, has a fortitude defense of 18, so pretty good. He might be able to withstand some of this. Yes, so wait a minute, that's a hit. I once again thought I was rolling a saving throw. That's a 19 +7. That actually hits and damages the dwarf hammerer. We need to make a separate attack roll against Eldith. Eldith has a fortitude defense of 19. Let's see how she fares. And he rolled a 1, so she is not as heavily affected. So here's another thing I'm messing around with today to sort of raise the intensity and shorten the length of certain combats. We're going to be making monsters more dangerous, but a bit easier to kill. So what we're going to have here, instead of 1d8 +4 damage, thunder damage, and dazed, he's going to be dazed. We're going to be doubling that damage. So we're going 2d8. We got 8, and we're going to be adding another 8 to it. So doubling the damage, that's going to be 16, and he's dazed. So Rogar gets rocked by this thundering dragon roar. Covers his ears and can hardly take notice of anything around him. He is dazed. That's what the yellow marker will indicate. So in 4th edition, dazed, you grant combat advantage. That's a trigger word. It might help opponents with a certain abilities they have. Basically, they get +2 to attack against you. And you can either take a standard action, a move action, or a minor. You can take free actions, but you can't take, a move and a standard. You can only take one action, basically. And you can't take immediate actions or opportunity actions, so no opportunity attacks, and you can't successfully flank an enemy. So he'll need to make 4th edition's version of a saving throw to shake that off. So Rogar will be able to make a saving throw at the end of his turn, and actually his turn is coming up now. The human mage has a speed of 6, but doesn't want to get on the front lines, so it's going to shift 1 space back to the edge of our combat map here. Well, what is Rogar going to do? He's got one action allowed to him. We're going to say that Rogar in addition to his shield, was armed with his throwing hammer in his hand. He has his main warhammer slung over his back. So, typically start with ranged attacks and then move in close. So he's going to take his one action and fight through the pain and sling his warhammer, not his warhammer, his throwing hammer at the closest cultist. So another point, great about 4th edition, companion characters. I just can pull anything from the stat blocks here. Throwing hammer. This has a range of 5 without penalty. And he can throw this. It's at +10 versus armor class, doing 1d6. And we're going to be doubling the static damage modifier. And that's just a recommendation for pre-Monster Manual 3 monsters. So that will be doubled. However, we're also going to be adding a heroic tier bonus. So I'm going to be giving a bonus of +1 to each of our heroes. So he's got +11 versus armor class. So counting range can be very important. 1, 2, 3. There's no problem with range here. I guess one thing we do need to take into consideration, throwing it at the closest enemy, is would there be any cover? As we can see this wall right here. If there is any cover, it's probably just partial. So I'm going to go through this with you. This is getting into sort of the more wargamey aspect of 4th edition. Determining cover. You choose a corner of the square you occupy. So we'll choose maybe the corner over here near his right hand. And we need to trace straight lines from there. And it goes from and trace imaginary lines from that corner to every corner of any one square that the target occupies. If one or two of those lines is blocked, the enemy has some cover. Well, we can clearly see that this back corner here of the cultist is blocked. Many of the other corners are not. So we're going to determine that that is some partial cover, and this will put a -2 penalty on his attack. Let's see how he does. Remember, +1 for heroic tier. He rolls a 5. I don't think this is going to do it. So let's do the math. This is actually going to be pretty close. He normally attacks with a +10. The heroic bonus that we're giving, some of you may be familiar with what was called a feat tax in 4th edition, where you were kind of stupid not to take a feat that would give you this +1 to your attacks. It worked out appropriately to balance the math. So some DMs just automatically gave this bonus to their heroes, and that's what I'm doing. So +11, right? That would be a 16 on the dice for his attack. Now, we have there cover, partial cover, -2. That's going to knock that attack down to a 14. And the human rabble's armor class is 15. So he misses by 1. So he is shaken by this thunder attack, hurls his hammer, and it just ricochets off the wall and clatters to the floor. All right, he was allowed 1 action only, and he threw his hammer. So let's, he can't move, he can't really do anything else. Let's let him make a saving throw. He needs a 10 or higher. That's a saving throw in 4E. And he rolled a 6. He is not over this yet. He remains dazed. Well, Eldith is going to try to cover for her friend. And let me make sure I know my movement. Movement is 5. We're going to carefully move up here. 1, 2, 3. Actually, let me see. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to move in here this way. And from that position, I've got 2 adjacent to me. Eldith is going to attempt a cleave attack. This will be Great Axe plus 10 to the attack. That will be boosted to an 11 due to our heroic tier bonus. If it is successful, then we get to do damage to enemies that are adjacent. Damage to them would be 4 points. So plus 11 to the attack. Let's get us back here on the board. Armor class 15. We rolled a 16, so this is successful. These are minions, so they go down by just doing 1 point of damage to them. So with a mighty sweep of her axe, she decapitates the first one and cuts into the second one, taking them both down in one sweep. All right, it is now time for the human rabble to go. The cultists here, they had an ability, and I say had, because they would get +2 bonus to all defenses while at least 2 other human rabble are within 5 squares. So actually that would have worked again here against our thrown hammer. They get a bonus when there's a bunch of them together. So at least 2 other nearby. So 2 are taken out. So now there's only 1 other nearby. They're not going to get that bonus. Armed with their weapons, let's say we'll go with the staves in their hands. This first one is going to charge. 1, 2. I think you need to... That's a pretty close call. I think you need to move at least 2 spaces to charge. Yeah, just double checked. You need to move at least 2 squares, and he did. He moved 2 squares exactly. So he's using +6 versus armor class. Our armor class is pretty good. I think we're... I'm gonna double check here. I think we're like a 22. Yeah, 22 on armor class. Let's see if he hits 17. That would hit a 23. So he actually hits us, and hits us for 8 damage, because we're doubling the damage. The next one charges forward as well, attempting a similar maneuver. And that looks like a 2. That one is a miss. Just sort of glances off her armor. All right, we're coming around for the second run of the or the second round. We don't re-roll initiative in 4th edition. We will stay, and the mage here that's leading these cultists gets to go first. We're going to change that from dancing lightning to some sort of maybe dancing fire. We could call it something else, but we're going to make a separate attack against 3 different targets. It's actually 2 targets here. Range 10, so this should be no problem. +7 versus reflex, and we're going to be doubling the damage on a hit. So Eldith is closest. She has a defense, a reflex defense of 16. So this will be +7. 8. That's a miss by 1. We're back to Rogar, who can't do very much. Basically, at this point, he's going to pull out another throwing hammer. I think he's equipped with around 3 of these. Let me make sure. Throwing hammer. I believe he's carrying, 3 throwing hammers. He pulls out, for his action for the round, pulls out his next throwing hammer, and now we have to make his saving throw. We just have to roll a 10 or higher. And we got a 20. Next turn, he can act normally. Well, Eldith faces off against the cultists, and she will attempt another cleave attack. Plus 11 to her attack roll. That is a 16, and she needed a 15. So that is a hit. So she manages to tear through the first one and through the second one. Just piling up the bodies here. She now can make a move. And she will move forward 1 space. Or maybe we should do a little tactical movement here. Let's move down 1 and then up 1. And that way we can sort of leave a path open for Rogar to join us. And we're going to try to get in this mage's face so he can't disappear. Now, there are no specific rules that I'm aware of for morale checks in 4th edition. So this is something I'm just going to come up with on the fly. Instead of just making a decision for this guy, he's lost his crew. And he doesn't want to engage these 2 fighters in face-to-face. It would be very natural for him to flee. But just to sort of handle this, in case he's not quite ready to run yet, we're going to make an intimidate check. And leading the assault here is Eldith. So we're going to use her intimidate skill. Her intimidate is at a 6. And I'm not going to give any specific bonuses or penalties. We're just going to make this a straight attack against his will defense. The human mage has a will defense of 15. So let's just see what happens. We've rolled a 6 plus 6 is 12. His will defense is 15. His will doesn't break. So that means at this point, he does not flee. Now, he's sort of cornered back there at the back of the board. I think what I'm going to do is allow him to play smart, not stupid. I'm going to put this hallway tile behind him. And he knows he can't turn his back here on this powerful fighter, so he shifts back 1 square for his first action. Then I would say for his second action, so if his morale had broken due to the intimidate, I would have had him just attempt to flee, and Eldith would have had an opportunity attack. That's probably what I would have done. But he's trying to stay smart. His will didn't break. He kept his cool. He backed up 1 space as his first action, and he'll take a move action as his second action and get out of there. So he is now running away. All right, that ends the encounter. It was a success. Our dwarves are back together, catching their breath. All right, our fighters here take a short rest, spend a healing surge each to get back to full health or close to full health. They recover their encounter powers, and they're ready to continue their search.